What's up, Shadowhunters, Angels, and Downworlders alike, and welcome to Fair and Unbiased, where I discuss the nitty-gritty details of each episode of Shadowhunters every week. Here's my episode on Love as a Devil. So, I thought that I would do another sort of themed episode this week. I thought that I would focus on a particular issue that seemed to be addressed more in Love as a Devil than you would see in other episodes. So, I thought that I would make a video on it, and the video is about the topic of racism in the Shadow World. This is me talking as a white person, so I'm not talking as if I know what it's like to be discriminated against, and I don't mean offense by it. I'm just saying that I noticed that they were representing this dynamic. It's clear that in both Shadowhunters and the Mortal Instruments book that the dynamics between the Shadowhunters and the Downworlders is a fictional reflection of the real world issue of the dynamic between races in the real world. The Downworlders are clearly a representation of minorities or people of colour, and the Shadowhunters are a reflection of white people in general. Now, I'm not an expert in this topic. I don't know all of the details. I'm going to try my best not to say anything that could cause offence, but I don't think that anything that I'm thinking about addressing will be particularly offensive. In fact, I feel like it'll be bringing up a very important issue that seems to be still very rife in the modern world today. So, taking some excerpts from the book, it's clear that the Shadowhunters are the superior race in this fictional fantasy reality, while the Downworlders are the minorities, as I've said. And this is made clear, especially in the Bane Chronicles. I say in the Bane Chronicles because you get to see things through the point of view of an actual Downworlder, where we don't get that in the Mortal Instruments books. It's told through Clary's perspective. Clary doesn't really focus that much on the sort of discrimination that goes on. It's more about her and her journey, so it's never really addressed properly, but in the books, we see things through Magnus's eyes, and Magnus actually brings up quite a few things that he has experienced with the Shadowhunters in the past that shows how discriminatory they are. An example is the Shadowhunters would have meetings with different representatives of the Downworld. Magnus represents the Warlocks. At one point, Camille represented the vampires. And I can't remember who the werewolf was in the particular story where this was brought up was. I'm not sure if it was Wesley Scott or someone else, but there would be a werewolf representative and a fairy representative as well. And in this particular story, Magnus brought up that the Shadowhunters treated them kind of like they were dirty. They were to be touched, they weren't to be even spoken in a particular way to. They were very much treated quite at a distance with the Shadowhunters, like the Shadowhunters were willing to interact with them as long as it was at a safe distance. They didn't want to get too close or interact too much. And in a different story where Magnus was actually talking about Alec at one point, he mentions that Shadowhunters used to throw out everything that Downworlders touched. They used to, if Magnus had eaten on a plate, the Shadowhunters would throw the plate out. They considered it contaminated, they didn't want to touch it. This was something that we never really got to see in the actual Mortal Instruments books because the Shadowhunters had evolved a bit. They had evolved to the point where they kind of were willing to accept services and interaction from the Downworlders. They were willing to be a bit nicer to them, but to a particular extent. But they still, in modern Shadow World, they still have this attitude where Downworlders are not to be trusted. Downworlders are to be treated a different way from the Shadowhunters. Downworlders are not on the same level of superiority as Shadowhunters are. They consider themselves on a higher pedestal. And how does this relate to Love as a Devil? Well, in Love as a Devil, we see how Maris in particular has the old attitudes towards Downworlders. Now, I'm not blaming this entirely on Maris. It was definitely a product of how she was raised, because Maris is not particularly old. She's probably at the most 40 or 50 years old, and when taken into the grand scheme of things and how long the Shadow World has been in existence, 40 to 50 years old is not that old. So she was raised a particular way to believe that this is the way the Downworlders are. Does that make it okay she acts the way she does? No, of course not. You can't excuse someone's behaviour by saying, oh, but they were raised that way. It's not how it works. You can understand how someone can act the way they do because they were raised that way, but that doesn't give them a free pass to behave the way they do. It doesn't excuse it. So this episode definitely brings up the topic of nature versus nurture. Is someone born with the beliefs about other races and other people being different, or is it something that you're nurtured to be like? Is it something that you're raised to be like? And I feel like we definitely see this in Max because of the way Maris actually speaks to him. At the start of the episode, we see that Max doesn't care that Alec is dating Magnus. He literally says, I don't care. As blasé as his response was, considering the fact that the Shadow World really hates Downworlders and really despises them and doesn't think that they'll be trusted and that they're lesser than them, a response of I don't care is actually quite good for a Shadowhunter, even a young Shadowhunter. So even if it seemed a bit sort of like teenage angsty, kind of rude, it was actually quite probably to Alec a relieving response that his brother didn't really give a damn that he was dating a warlock, a male warlock at that. But later on in the episode, we actually see that Max has kind of changed. When he's actually encountered with Magnus, when he actually interacts with Magnus, he becomes a different person. He becomes kind of intrusive, rude. He doesn't seem grateful at all for the present that he's given. He doesn't think that it's impolite to ask intrusive questions like, what's your demonic mark and stuff like that. And it becomes clear that that's because Maris has been telling him things. Maris has been changing his view on things by convincing him that the Downworlders are a particular way. And so we see in the episode that Max has it in his nature not to care that much about the fact that Alec is dating Magnus, but also he cares about what his mother has told him about Magnus, and it makes him act differently towards him. It makes him rude, as I say, intrusive, kind of mean. It changed his entire perspective. It isn't clear between the time that Max says that he doesn't care and the time that he's rude to Magnus. It isn't clear whether Maris has changed his perspective since then, or has this been an ongoing thing. But it definitely shows that Shadowhunters are raised to believe what they're believed about the Downworlders, and that makes sense. But it also makes it clear that this is something that the Shadowhunters are raised to believe. And that is something that we actually see in modern times more than we actually think. You see those memes all the time about no one being born a racist. You see those pictures about white children and black children playing together without caring. Because they don't. This is a belief that people are raised to have. It's something that until you're told that something is wrong, you're not going to think it's wrong. So if you're born and you're 5 years old, you see a gay couple kissing, you don't think anything of it when you're a kid. If you're 5 years old, you see a gay couple kissing, you're probably curious about it. You're probably thinking, well, why are two people of the same gender kissing? But you don't think, ew, two gay people are kissing. You might think, ew, kissing, because, you're 5. You're like, ew, kissing, cooties. But until you go to your parents and ask, why would two guys kiss? It depends on how your parents respond to you. It depends on what they say. It depends on whether they tell you, oh, well, sometimes two boys can love each other and two girls can love each other. Or if they say, oh, they're heathens, they're against the Bible, God hates them, stuff like that. The kid won't think any different of it. It depends on how their parents try to tell them the way things are. And there are special exceptions. Sometimes people don't believe their parents. Sometimes people reject what their parents teach them. It's not necessarily a topic of being told something by your parents and that's just it, that's your belief. But it's definitely something that's extremely common for someone to be raised to think a particular way about a particular race or a particular sexuality or a particular minority group. And I'm glad that Shadowhunters is addressing this. I'm glad that they're sort of showing that this is a kind of thing that kids especially don't naturally have themselves. It normally depends on how their parents teach them, unless they're born a sociopath or something like that and they don't have feelings for anything and they hate everything, then we don't really see a hateful child. A hateful child doesn't exist. A hateful child would be a work of fiction, really. And I think it's very interesting that Shadowhunters decided to address this, especially the way they addressed it. Max just said, I don't care, because he doesn't. He's 10 or 11 years old. I'm not sure how old he is, but he's very young. So he doesn't think that much about his brother dating a man warlock, until his mother comes to him and starts telling him all these things about Darkworlders. And what's the ultimate reason that the Shadowhunters feel this way towards the Darkworlders? Well, they're scared of them. This is the ultimate thing. Shadowhunters are afraid of the power that Darkworlders wield. Every single Darkworlder has an ability of some sort. Warlocks are magic. Fairies can cast spells. They can entrance you, bring you to their little fairy world. They have their own dimension, their own little place that they can call their own. They can open portals. They can control nature. Werewolves, they can change into animals. They can morph into werewolves and tear you apart. Vampires, they're vampires. They can suck your blood. They're fast. They can do the Enchantico thing. Shadowhunters don't have these abilities. Shadowhunters Shadowhunters have what they have through their ancestry from the Angel Raziel. They have angel properties in their blood. That's what makes them able to mark themselves. That's what makes them so capable in combat. But they still have to train. They're not naturally born with these abilities. They have to train. They have to work for it. They have to build up their prowess before they can actually get to the point where Shadowhunters like Jace or Alec or Isabel are at. They have to work hard. They don't naturally have these abilities. And to be fair, if a Shadowhunter was running towards a warlock, the warlock could blast them out of the sky. They wouldn't do it. A warlock wouldn't do it unless it was a bad warlock. But the possibility is still there. Warlocks have that magic in their hands that they are capable of doing, and that makes the Shadowhunters afraid. They're afraid of something that they can't have themselves. They are afraid of what Darkworlders are capable of what Darkworlders could do to them, what Darkworlders have that they don't have. And it makes them afraid. It makes them lash out. This isn't an uncommon theme in Shadowhunters. There has been brief mentions of such things throughout Season 1 and Season 2, a particular example being in Episode 12 of Season 1, when Maris, or was it Episode 13? Episode 12 or 13, where Alec confronts Maris about him kissing Magnus at the wedding, and he says, what, is it because he's a guy? And Maris says, no, it's because you chose Magnus Bane. And it's clear that she means you chose Magnus Bane, a warlock, a man with so much history, that someone who we can't control, because that's something else. The Shadowhunters can't control the Darkworlders. They try to. And does that sound familiar? Sounds kind of like the police situation in some parts of America, trying to control the minorities, trying to heave themselves onto the smaller groups to take control and to try to keep an upper hand in a battle that's not even really happening. That's not really like these people don't pose any harm, but the only people creating this problem are the ones who are scared, or the ones who think that they're better, they're the ones who are causing all the problems. I mean, you saw how capable Magnus was in combat. How him and Iris were able to throw magic at each other just without thinking, and they were two warlocks. Imagine the kind of power that they would have over someone who doesn't have that upper hand, who doesn't have magic, who can't defend themselves against such attacks. But the problem is, they won't do it. Magnus wouldn't hurt anyone without being provoked to do so. Magnus is a good guy, he wouldn't do that. But in the Shadowhunters' eyes, all they see is the power that he has. All they see is his magic. All they see is a Darkworlder who could possibly pose a threat. It doesn't matter that he probably won't. All they see is what could be. Again, in the real world, not everyone is racist. Not everyone is against minorities. For example, as I mentioned before, it's the way the police try to control particular minority groups. Well, not all police do. And in the same way, not all Shadowhunters have the racist mindsets. Isabel doesn't, Alec doesn't, Jace doesn't, quite a few people don't. I doubt Lydia does either. There are small exceptions. One of the more potent themes in the series of books was trying to make that group of people who accepted the Dark Elders larger. And that is a quest that people are still trying to pursue today. They're trying to make the group of people who accept minorities larger. They're trying to make the group of people who accept POC people larger. And I'm really happy that Shadowhunters are going this way with the series. It's a good way to reflect real-world events in their show. It's a very important topic that needs to be addressed because in the end, we're all human. In the real world and in the shadow world. Well, in the shadow world, it's more like they're all people. They're not exactly all human, but they're all warlocks, they're all vampires, they're all just people. And in the same way, in the real world, we're all just people. And the real mission is trying to get everyone to see that everyone just needs to be treated the same. And it's kind of sad that the fight for equality still has to be going these days, but sadly, something that can't be helped. But we're trying. We're trying pretty hard. It just adds to another ream of things that Shadowhunters is representing quite well. They're representing how people are still racist, and people are still sexist, people are still homophobic, and they're representing that through the discrimination between the Shadowhunters and the Darkworlders. How the Shadowhunters treat the Darkworlders reflects on how the superior race treats the minorities in the real world. And I hope we get to see more of it. I hope it gets addressed more. I hope it gets seen more, because I like the way it was done subtly in this episode. I like the way it wasn't immediately noticed, but I would like to see a bit more of it. I'd like to see maybe Maris recognizing her actions being wrong and trying to fix her way towards it to prove that even those who had this racist mindset, even people who were raised to discriminate, they can change. And since we see that Maris is human as well, through how she starts to cry when they find out that Robert was cheating on her, maybe we will get to see her change her views. Maybe we will get to see her try properly to accept Magnus as Alec's boyfriend and try to be nicer to the minorities. Because Shadowhunters have this problem where they try to blame everything on the Darkworlders. We see this in season 1, as I say, especially with the Merliorn plot, where they just thought, oh, just chuck him in the prison. We don't know, we'll just do it. Had to physically stop them. Isabel, Clary, and Jace had to physically stop them from doing this. And Luke and the vampires even joined in to help, because to the Darkworlders, they're all Darkworlders. They're all trying to help each other. Darkworlders look out for each other. Even vampires and werewolves. So, if vampires and werewolves can get along, I think that it's about time that the Shadowhunters kind of pulled their socks up and kind of changed their views. So I definitely think that this important topic should be addressed more in Shadowhunters, because despite the subtlety of it in Love is a Devil, I don't think everyone noticed it. So I would like to see maybe an episode where it is clear what they're trying to say. Because there was quite a few episodes in season 1 where we did get to see it. So it would be nice if they continued that way. Because seeing these topics addressed on popular pop culture TV is very good, because not only does it help the youth kind of see that these issues are happening, it helps the people involved in such issues in the real world feel like someone knows and someone recognizes that this is happening and they're trying to make a change. And the only people who can make a change, sadly, are us. No one else is going to do it for us. We all have to do our bit. So I definitely hope to see more of this dynamic going on. I hope we get to see more of the discrimination addressed between the Shadowhunters. I'd love to see Isabel call them all out again, like she did in episode 11. I think that would be great. I'm really glad they're doing this. So that's it for this week, Shadowhunters, Angels, and Darkworlders alike. I hope you liked this episode. It was very topical and had a lot of themes that reflect the modern day. So I hope it was interesting enough. I don't feel entirely confident with everything that I've said, because I'm kind of tired. I'm just out of tech, so I was just kind of rambling, but I hope I got the message across pretty well. So I'll see you next week for my first thoughts on Bound by Blood. See you next week, Shadowhunters, Angels, and Darkworlders alike, and remember, only you can make a change, because I'm not doing it for you, and no one else is, so it's down to you.
Valentine didn't come out of nowhere. We use our angel blood to justify everything we do, just like him. Like him, we forget that we are not only angels. We are part mundane. We can be afraid. And fear makes us cruel. And we turn our fear to downworlders, just as Valentine did. And just as he did, we will end up turning on each other.
Alec Lightwood, that guy's as straight as a roundabout.